Hello, today I'm going to be showing you how to upgrade the RAM on your iMac 21.5 inches models 2012 and 2013. We're going to be using the opening wheel tool. This tool will help you to cut the double-sided tape which keeps the screen in place. It might be a good idea to use one of those service wedges to keep the screen in the same position. Now we'll work around the screen with the opening wheel tool. Now we're going to lie the iMac on top of the table with the screen facing up. This way it will be safer to lift the screen. Lift the screen carefully because there are two cables attached to it, the LCD data cable and the backlight cable. So you have to disconnect them before you can lift the screen completely. You won't be able to lift the screen completely before you cut the double-sided tape on the bottom of the screen, so you have to cut that first. After cutting it, you should be able to lift the screen off completely and place it somewhere safe. Now we're going to be using a Torx 10 screwdriver to remove the fan screws. Then disconnect the fan cable and you can lift the fan off. Now we're going to remove the screws which keeps the hard drive in place. Now, carefully remove the data cable from the hard drive. Now we're going to remove the hard drive tray by removing the following screws. We also need to remove the screws for the power supply. Once we've taken off those screws, we are able to get the hard drive tray out. Now we need to move the right side speaker. To do that, we need to undo those two screws. Then we detach the Wi-Fi cable from the speaker. We also need to disconnect the speaker cable. We're also going to disconnect this other cable, which is the camera cable, and the other speaker cable. And we're also disconnecting this other cable. And we're also removing this other cable. And we remove this small cable from the power board. It's time to remove the power supply. To do that, you have to be very patient, because it is a very fiddly job. You also have to remember to disconnect the power cable from the chassis on the left side of the screen. Okay, this is the power cable I was talking about, which is connected to the chassis. Now you can remove the power supply, finally. And also disconnects the power supply from the motherboard. Now we're going to be using a Torx 7 screwdriver to remove the heatsink screws. Finally, we're going to disconnect the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth aerial cables from the motherboard. Now we're going to be using the Torx 10 screwdriver again to remove the remaining screws which are keeping the motherboard in place. Now we're going to release the hard drive cable and the speaker cable to help us lifting the motherboard out. Please note you have to remove the motherboard at an angle to be able to pull it out. And you have to do it very careful, obviously, needless to say. Now we can disconnect the hard drive data cable and power cable. Now the motherboard is out of the case, we can install the new memory modules. Now it's time to put it all back together. Good luck. I'm just kidding. In reality, it should be a lot easier to do this. So we're going to plug the hard drive data cable and the power cable back into the motherboard. And we're going to place the motherboard back in place. Now we screw it back in place. Now we're going to put the power supply back in place. Don't forget to connect the power cables to the chassis and to the motherboard. Now we're going to put the hard drive tray back in place. Make sure to tidy up the hard drive and speaker cables back on their chassis. Now we screw the tray back in place. We're also going to screw the power supply back in place. We're going to put the hard drive back in place. Then we'll connect this small power cable into the power supply as well. And we'll put back those plastic brackets that keep the hard drive in place. Okay, we're going to reconnect the camera cable and also the speaker cable. So we're going to reconnect pretty much all the other cables. The other speaker cable as well. Put the speaker back in place and screw it back. Now we're going to carefully reconnect the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth aerial cables. We're going to screw the fan back in place and also connect the fan cable. And then we're almost done. Now this step is very important. You must make sure to remove the old adhesive tape from the screen. You also have to remove the old adhesive tape from the chassis as well. Now we're going to apply the new double-sided adhesive tape to the chassis. Now we're going to put the screen back in place. Don't forget to connect the two cables. And be very careful to align it properly. Okay, now it's time to get rid of those finger marks of the screen with a microfiber cloth. If you like this type of video, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Subscribe!